We're doing lesson number 3 today, Kabbalah. Welcome back. Okay. Before I begin, 1 second, get to the right page here. Okay, page number 74. Before I begin, I want to give a very, very special thank you to Marcy or Marcia Gelber. How do you pronounce it, Marcy or Marcia? Huh?
It's Marcy.
Marcy.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for the laptop. This was tremendous. And Shirley Gottfried, who's not here, did sponsor a new projector, but we did not yet get it, so we're still on the old one, which, as you can see, is blinking on and off, so it's still doing that. But we do have at least a laptop to work with. That is incredible. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to all of the for breakfast. Who make that possible every day. Every week. One second. Try and restart this again. Old-fashioned way. Okay, we'll start that up again. Okay. So we are at lesson number 3 of Kabbalah. One more thing, a reminder, next week there will not be a class. It's going to be a bye week. It's a Team JLI bye week. Anyone that follows football knows that term. No football fans here. If you're football fans here, you probably wouldn't come here on Sunday, right? So we're going to have a week off. It's the week of the International Convention of Shluchim, Chabad rabbis who come from all over the world. You will be able to watch it at 1 o'clock is the general convention. You'll see a link to it on our Facebook for those who want to watch it live. Also, this year with everything that's happening in Israel. So many of the Chabad rabbis in Israel are having their own convention, and they're going to be live streaming with each other. The international one together with Israel. It's going to be a very, very special event. So just if you follow us on Facebook, you'll see more information about that.
Where's it going to be in the United States?
In New York. Yes. We'll be looking out for our protesters outside. I need to correct it. The actual banquet, I think, is in New Jersey, but the main convention is in New York. Anyway, so we're at the 3rd lesson of Kabbalah, the world of Kabbalah. I hope everyone got an extra hour of sleep, so you'll be up and ready to go. In my case, my daughter Devorah did not know that she was supposed to sleep an extra hour. So, she didn't get the memo exactly. So we're going to talk about angels today. Well, at least we'll talk partly about angels. We all know in our prayers, we say a prayer that goes Kadosh, 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 right? Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Shem Tzavos Melech Haaretz Kavoda. So what does it mean, Kadosh, Kadosh? And why do we say it 3 times? It may be the only prayer that's recited 3 times. Let's see. So this prayer is taken from the prophet Yeshayahu. Still doing this thing. Hopefully we'll get it right. The prophet Yeshayahu, and he was describing his mystical vision that he saw, and the vision of the angels known as the seraphim. So let's take a look at text number 1. Get one more. Let's try one more thing here. We're doing that. Text number 1. The seraphim stood above to serve him, 6 wings to each one, and one called to the other and exclaimed, Holy, holy, holy is the God of hosts, the entire earth is full of his glory. So this is the Kadosh, holy, holy, holy. It's really not working. So what is the meaning of these words? And why are they significant enough to be recorded in the Tanakh? And another thing we want to understand, what is this term seraphim for angels? Okay, we'll give it a rest and then we'll try and reset it up again. What is the term seraphim for angels? Seraphim, and what does it mean that they have 6 wings, right? Now I know that in our culture we tend to imagine angels as having wings, but these are obviously spiritual beings. So what exactly does it mean that they have wings? So we have to understand, what is the prophet Yeshaya, what is he actually telling us? And soon we'll see why this is significant. So let's examine our Kabbalah map, which you have in front of you. And we're going to go through this again. This is not the fault of the laptop. This is the projector. So lesson number 3. Today we're going to be looking at the orange, or it's actually more like yellowish. On one side looks kind of orange, and the other side is yellowish. So we're going to be looking at Keter. But the first section, we introduced Biyah. Biyah is Bariya, Yitzira, Asiya, right? There, Alan, you want a book? I have an extra one. Bariya, Yitzira, and Asiya. That was the first week. Then last week we introduced the Atzilut, and we introduced the 10 Sefirot. There's one Sephira that we did not refer to, and that is what's called Keter. Now, what we learned is that the Sefirot, we introduced a concept, which is a uniquely Hasidic concept, the idea that the Sefirot are called Elokus. Elokus. Elokus means not God. Elokim is God. Elokus means godliness. That they are godly infused beings. Godly infused expressions called Sefirot. So now we're going to look at the transcendent aspect, which is pre-Sephiros. And this is what we're going to introduce, the concept called Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Or Ein Sof. Or means light, Ein Sof means infinite. So let's take a look at what this is exactly. Reb Chaim Vital Eitz Chaim, he was one of the well-known Kabbalists, lived in the city of Tzfat. He was one of the preeminent students of the Arizal, of the holy Reb Isaac Luria. He says, before Atzilut was emanated and before the creations were created, a simple divine light filled all of reality. It had no aspect of beginning or end. It is called Ein Sof, the infinite light. So the Kabbalah specifically pair the term light with the words Ein Sof, infinity. So what is the connection between the two? On one hand, when we talk about light, light has to have a source. It has to have an illuminator. If you see that there's light, it has to mean that there's something shining. If you wake up in the morning and you see that there's light outside, that means that the sun's shining. If you come into a room and there's light, it means that you have lighting. It means that you have a source of light. On the other hand, light is only the expression of whatever is illuminating that light. So if you have a 100-watt bulb, it will be a very, very bright light. If you have a 60-watt bulb, it won't be as light. If it's an orange bulb, the light will look orange. If it's a blue bulb, the light will look blue. So whatever the light is an expression of what the source of the light is. So when we say Ar Ein Sof, it means that it's the light which is the light of whatever is expressing it at that moment. I'll turn this off for now. We'll try and get it for the video. So this is the term 3.1, or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Another common term is presented, the following passage of the Zohar. Alongside this term, which is Ihu Sovev Kol Almin. Ihu Memale Kol Almin. Sovev, what does the word Sovev mean? Sovev means it surrounds or encompasses. Memale means he fills. Encompasses or fills. What is the difference between Sovev Kol Almin? Okay, so you see again, those are the terms. Term 3.2 and term 3. So we have 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. So we just learned three terms. First one, Ar Ein Sof, God's infinite self-projection that is intimately connected with God's essence, that transcends definition, limitation, and specific attributes. Then you have the Sovev Kol Almin, which is God that transcends the emanation of Sefirot and the creation of Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. And then you have Memale Kol Almin, which is God as he emanates in the Sefirot and actively creates Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Okay? So these are the three terms that we need to understand what we're going to be dealing with today. Now, let's go back to, so when we talk about the bottom part of our chart, when we talk about the blue part of our chart, that would be what we call Mimale Kol Almin, filling all the worlds. The middle part would be called Sovev. The top part, which we'll be talking about today, is Sovev Kol Almin. What would be the difference? Mamali means that he's personally involved. He's filling the worlds, meaning I'm involved. I'm there. I'm dealing with it. The Sovev means I am surrounding. Doesn't necessarily mean physically surrounding, but it means that it's something that I am on top of. I am more generally involved, but not in such a specific way. Right? And this is the difference between the two. It's going to be kind of small today. Maybe we got it working for a little bit. Okay, let me try this again. No, it's not working.
There it goes.
Okay. We'll be on and off. All right. Trying to. Okay, so this is the R Ein Sof. Now, we're going to explain this a little bit more, but first let's go back to the discussion of Biyah. Okay? So we talked about Biyah, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiyah. Bria, Yetzira, and Asiyah means that these are the worlds, the way God has brought about the creation of the worlds. Now we talked about that we are in the lowest world, the lowest realm called Asiyah, which is the world of action. However, you have the higher realms, which is called Bria, Yetzira, and Asiyah. And just get up to where we're up to. Okay, so you have Mamali Kolom, and noticing the beauty around us or searching for meaning leads to recognizing God. And then you have the Sovev Kol Almin, which is noticing. Okay. All right. We'll leave that for now. Okay, let's continue on. So now, Seraphim. Seraphim are angels in the world of Bria. What does the word Seraphim mean? Seraphim comes from the word Sreifa. What does Sreifa mean in Hebrew? What's a Sreifa? Sreifa means a fire. These are they're burning angels. What does it mean they're burning angels? Burning angels mean that they have a passion. They have a burning passion for something. They want to reach higher. They want to get something better. They have a burning desire to reach to something greater. Which means that you already have a understanding and appreciation for something, but you have a desire to get more. To understand this, let's first read text number 4. We'll introduce this concept of Seraphim. We're on page 78. The lofty angels of Bria are called Seraphim from the word to burn, due to their flaming passion to gaze at the king's glory, at Sovev Kol Almin, the state of godliness that encompasses all worlds, which is separate and transcendent, Kadosh. That is why they proclaim Kadosh. So, what are we saying? So you have Seraphim, again it's a new term, 3.4, Seraphim, burning beings, angels of Bria who experience a fiery passion to cleave to God as He transcends limitation. Let's try and make this simple for you to understand it. So we talked about the concept of a great scientist coming into a room and giving an explanation to 5th graders. Okay? So you have Isaac Newton or Einstein coming and giving a talk to his 5th graders. And we said, he has to dumb it down so that they could understand it, but even if he's explaining it in that way, it still doesn't take away from who he is. Now let's take another scenario. Let's say sitting in his class is a kid named Sheldon Cooper. You know who Sheldon Cooper is? Mm-hmm. Right, okay. A really, really smart, brilliant kid.
With no common sense.
With no common sense. But he but he listens to this talk. Sheldon Cooper is a character in The Big Bang Theory. It's a really smart kid that he loves science, and he's a brilliant kid, and as a fifth grader he's already going into high school, whatever. So here you have this brilliant kid. He loves science, and he knows, and he's following along, and he's saying, "Wow, that's great. Yes, that's incredible. I can't believe it. This is the most brilliant thing I ever heard." Now the teacher is done, right? He's done giving his presentation. And then what happens? He walks out. What do you think that kid is going to do? You think he's going to say, "Wow, that was good. Just sit in his seat. Just sit back in his seat"? What do you think he's going to do? Second he walks out, he's going to run over to the teacher and say, wait, I have more questions. Tell me more. I want to know more. So when you reach a certain level of certain appreciation for something, you're always going to want to have more. So when the seraphim are in this realm of understanding and appreciating God's revelation in the world of Bria, they say, there's got to be more. I want to know more. I want to know, what is God really? If this is God's expression, if this is God's light, then there has to be so much more to appreciate. See, we are sitting in the world, a physical world, where we don't see God's light emanating. We don't see it very clearly. We don't see it openly. But for the angels, they appreciate what they are getting. They see it, it's clear. But they also recognize that this is very limited to what God really is. And they say, I want more. You know, imagine you have someone that is a very, very great actor. And he acts for someone, and he acts someone that you really want to know. You know, you just had this movie, Golda Meir, right? Golda Meir. Many of you watched the movie, Golda. So when you go away coming from the movie, which I did not watch, when you go away, I would assume probably most of you would say, "Wow, I wish I really could have met Golda Meir. She would have been such an incredible woman that I would have loved to meet in person." So when you know something, when you appreciate it, that actually makes the desire that you want to have more, that you want to have a deeper connection. And this is what's happening with the angels. We're like the fifth graders who know nothing. We don't understand anything. So you give us a little, we'll take it, however you explain it, and we'll take it for what it is. But the seraphim, they do get it. They want more. That's the seraphim, means they're burning passion and desire. Yeah.
Were these angels the souls of former human beings that have now become angels? Or
There are souls in those realms as well. Yes, there are souls that end up in those realms, and depending on the level of the soul is at what level. But that the term Gan Eden, right? Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, is also in the realm of Bria. So souls do have that appreciation when they reach that level, and yes, and they do want to understand more, but at the same time, getting a little off topic, but at the same time, when the soul comes down in this world, this is the only place where we could have God's essence. So we're going to get to that later on in lesson 6, that if you want to fully encompass everything about God is, that could actually only be appreciated in this physical world. But we're going to get to that later. Text number 5. The seraphim say Kadosh, because they comprehend God's transcendence. That's why they have 6 wings. They are in a constant state of rising upward. Okay. Now we could understand also, now that we understand about this passage, we could also understand why is it that we say it daily. Most people begin their journey with God with what we call Mamale Kol Omen. You look at the vast universe with all its beauty and complexity, and you know that there's something more. You know that there's something greater. You know that there's something that is far beyond what this limited world is about. And there's different ways how people deal with that. But the fact is that we all as human beings feel a certain sense of emptiness. You know, over here we are able to stand outside, right from here, and we're able to see, as many of you probably could as well, the rocket launches.
Yeah.
Right? You see the rocket launches? Yeah, we have a great view here. So whenever they come up, they let you know that there's going to be a rocket launch, and and you're watching these rockets go up, and you can only imagine, what is beyond this realm that these rockets are seeing, so much beyond this world, this so small of a world that we see. And so. But this is as much as we could understand. And then so you become more interested in the Creator. That's what we call Mamali Kalaman. Mamali Kalaman means the way God fills the world, means how God is within the realms of this world. But He is also Soviv Kalaman, which means that it's something much vast and much more greater. So each day we have a particular focus on our prayer. And we recognize God's role in our lives. And to help us recognize that, we take a look at the angels. And we say, take a look at how the angels relate to God. Whatever they see, they always know there's something higher. But at the same time, we recognize that we're also here, that God put us here for a purpose and for a reason. And therefore, we have to. That also helps us understand that while angels are looking for something greater, God is giving us the ability to be able to fulfill His mission and His purpose in this world. And when we want to see God who He is, when we do that in our prayers, we try to comprehend that, and we also begin to appreciate who we are and why our soul is here. And so that's why we want to connect to these angels, to see how angels connect to God, and then say, well, God is also giving us an opportunity to connect to Him in the special way that we do, and that's how we start off our day. It's like, if you're in if you're in a marriage, so there may be some great romantic moments, and then but you also understand that in a relationship, it's about everything. It's about the up times and it's about the down times. It's about coming together at moments which are ecstasy moments, but it's also moments of seeing the reality of life and dealing with everything. And so God is telling us that we want to see how the angels relate to God and how the angels have a desire to connect to God. That is to awaken within us to have that connection to God and to also appreciate how that is to be brought down in our lives every day. In text number 80, I'm sorry, page number 80, not text 80, page 80. Yeah, page 80, not text 80. This is what we call the 13 attributes of mercy. We say them on Yom Kippur many, many times, and we're not going to read through them. Again, that's going to be for you to read on your own. But these are ways of God interacting with our physical world in different levels and in different ways, expressing each of these emotions. So now let's take a look at, according to this is going to give us a new light in understanding a new concept. But to understand this concept, we're going to introduce a verse that we say in our Kaddish. Everybody knows this verse. Ohoseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imiru, amen. So let's take this apart for a second. What does it mean? May he who makes peace in heaven, also shalom bimromav, He who makes peace in his realms, make peace for us and all Israel. Now I understand the second half. We're asking God to make peace. Especially now, more than ever, we need peace. So we're asking God to make peace. Good. The question is, what does it mean, God who makes peace bimromav in his heavens? Making peace in heavens? What does it mean making peace? Why is God making peace in heaven?
What happens there happens here.
Still giving us a problem? Try again. What was saying? Got it?
Maybe what happens here happens there.
So, okay, well, what exactly does that mean? Are they fighting in heaven?
Yes.
Yes? You say yes.
Fighting now.
Yes, they're fighting in heaven. As you saw in your paper here, that there's a number of different sefirot. And we zeroed in two particular ones which talk about Chesed and Gevurah. And Tiferes. Talked about three. Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes. Chesed and Gevurah are polar opposites. Chesed is about giving. It's about being in a completely unorganized, uncontrolled fashion. That's Chesed. And the polar opposite of that is Gevurah. Gevurah means containing judgment in an organized fashion, everything the opposite of each other. And we explained that you have to have the two together, which is called Tiferet. Tiferes, right? There's the middle one. We said brings it about together, both of the two together. How do you bring the two together? So with this we're going to introduce another term on your paper called Hitkalelut. Hitkalelut. Hitkalelut comes from the word kalal. Kalal, which means general, and which means incorporation. The intermingling and harmonization of godly sefirot. Bringing the different ones together.
From two opposites.
Yes, taking opposites and bringing them together. So how do you take two things that are opposites and bring them together? So, the answer is, if you have two kids fighting in a classroom, what do? How do you bring them together? How do you make peace?
Depends on the kids and what they're fighting about.
Well, the most simple way is the first thing is you go to the teacher. And when they're in front of the teacher, they know they need to behave. Now, if the teacher walks out of the room, they'll start fighting again. Teacher comes back in, they're going to behave because they're scared of the teacher. Let's take a look at text number 7. The synthesis of the 10 spheros, especially those that are opposites, such as Chesed and Gevurah, is made possible through the agency of supernal light that transcends the characteristic of the sphirot. Upon sensing the supernal light, the sphirot experience bittul. They relinquish their configuration and synthesize with each other. Consider the example of two government ministers who hopelessly oppose each other. When they appear together before the king, they remain who they are with their preferences, but find themselves working with the opposing viewpoint to reach a required consensus. This is the consequence of their state of bittul that results from their overwhelming trepidation and awe of the king's majesty, whose rank by far transcends their own. Similarly, the opposite forces of Chesed and Gevurah and Atzilut can synthesize due to illumination of God's infinite light, Ein Sof. So here we're giving the parable of ministers. That you have two ministers. You have two that are not working together. You have one which is the minister of defense, and the other one which is the minister of finance. Let's say. Now the minister of defense says we have to keep spending. We have to keep spending. We have to keep our country protected. Minister of Finance says, we have to be fiscally responsible. So these two are at odds. So now they're coming to the king, and the king says, listen here, this is the way it's going to be. And they have to listen. We don't really have a monarch, but the concept you understand. So each sphera embraces its definition. Chesed embraces its definition. Gevura embraces its definition. But when you have a higher light that's encompassing the two, then automatically those two are completely nullified by that greater light, and each one will stand to exist in together and be something together. And with this, we will understand the concept of the next of the Sephirot, which is going to be introduced in this class, and that is called Keter. Keter literally means a crown. A crown. This explains why the Kabbalah, you see this idea that we have with this picture here, that how they're all connected. It's not just because it looks like a nice image. When you look at everything, when everything looks like a nice DNA. But actually they are each connected in the exact form that they are being shown. So the fact that Keter is in a straight line with these, that means that these are all connected to each other. All that are in the middle are connected to each other. The ones on the right are connected to each other, and the ones on the left are connected to each other. Now they are all as one. They ultimately could come together, because you could have Chesed within Gvur, and you could have Gvur within Chesed, and so on. But what we have to know is that Keter and Dat and Tiferes is what we're talking about till now, are all interconnected, which is why they are in one line. They're all on the same team. Why does that work? What is the connection between Keter and Tiferes? Well, now according to what we explained, we understand. Because how do you make Tiferes? How do you make the beauty? How do you make the connection between two opposites? You need the Keter, you need the crown, you need the one that is standing above to bring two opposites together. And this is what we call the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Yes?
It sounds like the infinite light fosters compromise.
Exactly. So they are compromising, but they're compromising not because they're really compromising, they're compromising because there is a greater source that is forcing that compromise. Which is a different type of compromise. There is another type of compromise, which compromises where the two actually appreciate each other and able to come together, which we'll talk about soon. That's a compromise that we call marriage.
I just have a thought about that. It's almost like when yesterday we were talking about in our class about how we have control over certain things and God has control over certain things. And it seems to me like the same thing, because we make decisions about things and then God comes in and He sort of changes our lives. You know what I'm saying?
I can't really comment on what was said yesterday. I don't know what was said, but are you asking the connection between free choice and God's control in the world? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay, free will. Okay, that's a different question. That's not really relevant specifically to what we're discussing here. Over here, we're simply bringing out the concept that you could have two opposing forces that could come together when there is a greater force that is putting them in the same place. One great example of this in a physical sense, one of the plagues in Egypt, there were 10 plagues. What was one of the plagues? It was a plague called hail. What was that hail? Anybody know what that hail was? There's ice and fire. It had both ice and fire in it. And they and the two came together. How could ice and fire come together? And the way it came together was because God said this is what has to happen, even though they are polar opposites. That's one example of how they played out in a physical realm, these two concepts. Now, as I mentioned before, did someone else have a question here? Yes.
Make a statement that the synthesis, the result of what happens when the two opposites get together, is that to be considered better than things were before? Does it improve the situation?
Just like anything else, everything has its ups and downs. There's something great about chesed. There's something good about gevura. There's also a downside to chesed, and there's also a downside to gevura. When you're bringing them together, you're losing a certain aspect of each of those. So the answer is that sometimes you may want to have a full expression of chesed. Sometimes you may want to have a full expression of gevura, but most of the time you want to have it balanced. In general, you want to have it balanced. I told someone last week I would get a microphone. I did not. I'll have to do that for the coming weeks.
When they get together, because there's the middle entity,
Right.
it's not really that it's not even a consensus. It really is that they just don't want to anger the middle entity, I think. And I think what happens is it's like they're giving in, it's not really a consensus, and they have
Well, it's that they don't have a choice.
Right.
They don't have a choice. Right? The boss is telling them, if there's two employees arguing,
Right.
the boss says this is what it is. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean they're changing their opinion.
Right.
But if the boss says this is what it is, and that's what it is, they don't have a choice. This is why also, by the way, when we have a Torah, we always want to put on top of the Torah a crown. That's representing the keter of the Sefirot of the Torah. Is that what you wanted to say? No. Okay.
You've seen the fire and water in the term Shemayim.
Shemayim, yes, that's true. Shemayim is fire and water, correct. Okay, one more quick one, and then we're moving on.
When you have the money and the security, each one wants, when they balance, together the whole unit flourishes at a higher level.
Okay. True. Yes. That's why the king recognizes that you need both, and it's going to be whatever it is. That's why you need a higher source. True. So now let's see how this plays out. So we gave an example here. Okay. So we gave an example of a wedding, right? I mentioned a wedding. I mentioned a wedding where we have the observable body-based relationship between the husband and wife is not, you can't really see how these are two connected individuals. Each soul is unique. We talked about that in the previous lesson. Each soul has its unique expression of which sephiros that soul is connected to. And so now when you bring the two together in a marriage, really it doesn't make sense. Really, marriage doesn't make sense. Especially men are from Mars and women are from Venus and that whole thing. Marriage doesn't make sense. But yet, God says the very first thing when He creates Adam, He says, your job is to come together and to have a marriage. And so, how do you bring together these two soulmates when each one is so incredibly different? How do you have that harmony? And so this is the idea of a wedding, is bringing together two opposites into one. So you have a physical bond, but you also have a soul bond. And so how do we bring about these two souls, bringing them together?
Isn't it like a balance? Balance and balance.
Well, yes, but each one has to make compromises, and you'll always have to keep giving in. And it's usually the guy that always has to do that. But let's take a look at text number 8. You're going to see something very interesting, that if you've been to a Jewish wedding, you've seen this. but now you'll understand the deeper meaning behind this. The bride and groom are opposites. To unite as one, they require an infusion of higher energy that shines from a degree of divinity that transcends their differences. This is the significance of leading a bride and groom under a chuppah that hovers above both of them equally and is positioned at a height above them. It corresponds to the encompassing light of Sovev Kol Almin. You see in page 86 some of the aspects of and the deeper significance of the things that we do. For example, circling. The bride circles the groom 7 times. Why the number 7? Again, you see the number 7. Putting the veil on it, what that represents. The ring, the Kiddushin ring, the specific concept of putting it on a ring, putting on the ring on a circle, going on the finger, and then the dancing afterwards. All these aspects of the marriage are very much, in a deeper sense, in a more Kabbalistic way, is very, very meaningful and deep. Why is that? Because a marriage is the one real place within this physical realm where we could take God's infinite light and bring it down into this physical world. How is that possible? Well, the real only way that we could bring an infinite light into this world is by doing what? By creation of a new infinite light. So if you create something which is just simply physical, so you have the creation of it, the erosion of it, eventually breaks apart, it's useless now, and its demise, it turns back into some sort of metal. That's any physical thing in this world. There's only one physical thing in this world. When something is created, now it has the ability to create infinitely more. And that is this. The creation that comes about from the creation to a marriage, to coming together, and then the creation that comes from that again. And this is something which is only possible through the union of a marriage. And this is why when we talk about the Ein Sof is this union. And that's why, as well, when God created Adam and Eve, they were both created as one, and then eventually split into 2, it says that you're formed in the image of God, because it's the human being that has this ability to bring about the Ein Sof, the infinite, into this realm. And so now we understand that yes, there are conflicts in marriage, and that does happen, but what it really is boiling down to is the fact that you have 2 opposites, 2 physical beings that are opposites, not only physically, but even their souls come from different places. Even spiritually, they're from different places. But they're able to put that aside and come together for this one unity. This is what true infinity means. Meaning embracing your personal differences and allowing your conscious mind to sense what your soul already senses. And this is what happens in this incredible unity of a marriage. Which is why it's such a joyous time. Which is why it's a time of celebration. It's why when you come together you want to involve the friends and family to appreciate this moment. And now we have a greater appreciation of what it means, Osa Shalom Bimromav. Osa Shalom means we can allow He who makes peace in heavens to make peace for us in Israel. What does it mean making peace in heaven? Peace in heaven means the God that takes the different pieces, the different attributes, the different powers, the different forces, brings them together, and we say, God, bring that by us as well, bring the peace unto us as well. Okay, now we're going to take a little break to watch our buddy, the guy that goes through all the things of the video, breaking it down for us.
the third episode of the world of Kabbalah, our journey through the mystical realms of the Kabbalistic system. In previous episodes, we discussed various worlds, worlds of independence, and the divine world of the Sefirot. The common denominator is that all worlds are finite zones. But Kabbalah also discusses a reality that transcends limitation, God's infinite light, or Ein Sof. Here's the catch. Yes, the infinite light transcends the Sefirot, but it's also crucial to their functioning. Let's look at three of the Sefirot. Chesed is the impulse to share generously, whereas Gevurah is restraint and discipline. We know from our own lives that healthy living means balancing the two, which is the role of Tiferet, a compromising blend of Chesed and Gevurah. Kabbalah discusses other Sefirot blends as well. Sefirot diagrams typically show 22 inter-Sefirot channels representing unique Sefirot blends. That process is called Hitkalalut. But this synthesis should not be taken for granted. After all, each Sephira is unidimensional. Imagine if you personified Chesed. It was the only ingredient in your DNA. Would you tolerate an opposing impulse? No. So we can easily imagine a scenario in which each Sephira has blind patriotism for its own configuration and definition, where it would be impossible for the Sefirot to collaborate. But that didn't happen. And here's a parable to explain why. Imagine a monarch who has two ministers engaged in endless arguments. The defense minister demands a formidable army, while the finance minister desires a stable economy. When summoned before the king to present a viable solution to challenges facing their nation, their reverence for the throne diminishes their rivalry, and they collaborate harmoniously. They are now able to devise a plan that strikes a delicate balance, ensuring the stability of both the treasury and the military. In a similar way, because the Sefirot sense, or Ein Sof, how God transcends the entire concept of limitation, they shed their rigidity of their characters. They are empowered to overlook their identities to collaborate with the other Sefirot. Now, you might wonder, how does all this relate to us? Well, this concept is one of Kabbalah's keys to marital harmony. Marriage has two dimensions: the unity of bodies, the tangible relationship between husband and wife, and the unity of soul. They're invisible but powerful soul bonds. But considering that each soul is rooted in a different Sefira, how do two souls unite as one? The answer is based on the collaboration of Sefirot. Soul fusion works when each soul, like its root Sephira, senses God's transcendence of all particular characteristics. This awareness empowers a soul to transcend its individuality and to merge with another soul. That happens as bride and groom stand side by side under the chuppah. So to enhance a marital harmony, remind yourself, my soul was unable to unite with my spouse's soul until it sensed divine infinity. Why don't I allow that process to continue in my conscious life as well? My experience. This embrace of God's transcendence empowers me to be open to the connection and cohesion with my soulmate.
Okay.
Are you sure it's not your internet buffering?
What?
It could be your internet buffering.
It's not the internet. It's working on the computer. It's the projector. We're going to hopefully get a new projector by the next class.
So what happens if the two people have the same Sephirot? The assumption has always been made that they're on opposite sides, suppose they're the same or on the same side. And that's the logical possibility.
What you're saying, if the husband and wife come from the same place?
Both, that's it, they're both born or whatever.
I mean, every soul is made up of all of them. The question is, what is more prevalent? You know, the very fact of a male and a female automatically says that they're different. You know, it could be that you have two that are somewhat more connected, but you're always going to have, everyone's a little different. There's no such thing as everyone being exactly the same. In a lot of cases, opposites attract. But, you know, and also you have different aspects of your life, you know, but when it comes to certain things, you may be more connected, you know, more similar, and other areas you may not be. But there's no such thing as two people being exactly the same. That doesn't happen.
Is that why Adam and Eve were one entity?
They were originally created as one entity and then separated, yes.
Was the reason they were separated because because of their differences, they had to be separated?
Well, God wanted them to be two entities that are coming together, but it wanted, in other words, it had to come out that it's both. It had to come out that you had to be one, but also to be split into two, and then those two coming back together.
But they weren't one sex.
They were originally created as one soul, and then eventually that breaks up into millions and millions and millions.
It equates to sexuality.
No.
Soul does not equate.
No.
Construed that they were of the same sex.
No. No, they were one being of two sexes of one being.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's different opinions, but the most accepted opinion is that basically they were like back to back, and then they were split down the back. Although there are other views on that, but regardless, that's the general point. Okay, so now, once we've learned this, in lesson 1 we learned about thought, speech, and action. And then beyond that, we also have comprehension, creativity, and personalization. And this is the intellectual capabilities, the intellectual faculties. Now, in God, when we're talking about Atzilut, that is where the concept of intellectual faculties comes about. But when it comes to the human soul, this is part of what the soul is. Let's take a look at text number 9. The soul Gesundheit. The soul itself is a simple, undefined light that transcends the division of intellect and emotion. So, how does this concept of the Keter play in our human life? So the answer is, another word for Keter, crown, is Ratzon. Now Ratzon is typically translated as will or desire. My will or desire to do something, to be something. That also comes from the word sinor. Sinor means a conduit or a pipeline. Ratzon, sinor is the same words. Ratzon, will and desire, sinor, a conduit or a pipeline. And with this we'll understand how this concept of Keter plays out in the human soul. The Hebrew letters that spell Ratzon, desire, also spell sinor, pipeline. It is just as a pipeline is employed to channel something, so does the human will channel the soul towards a particular matter. Text 11. One type of human desire is referred to as a born desire, because it's brought into being at a particular time. It is also referred to as a lower desire, because its position is beneath that of the intellect. Such a desire takes to shape only after we strongly contemplate a particular matter. Without this, we will not experience any desire towards that matter. By contrast, when we think deeply about it, whether it's a specific food, an item of clothing, a financial issue, a lucrative business deal, etc., then the desire for that thing is born within us. This type of desire is called midah, which means a measured or limited. For a desire born from intellectual knowledge and contemplation is a measured desire, limited to the specific rationalization that created it. Consequently, when the logical basis for this desire ceases or becomes irrelevant, the desire towards that matter will similarly disappear. There is, however, a second type of desire referred to as a higher desire. This desire is limitless, it's a simple desire that transcends intellectual and is not born from it. Instead, it's a natural desire that relates to our very selves. For example, a father's love for the offspring that are an extension of his essence, and a mother's compassion for the child that she bore. These are natural desires that entirely transcend intellect and reason. So let's break this down a little. You have two types of desires. One is the innate desire, and that is beyond intellect. It sways intellect and it's constant. There are certain things that are a natural desire of a human being. A natural desire of a human being is to have a desire to connect to their parents, and a parent has a desire to connect to their children. That's something that's natural. A natural desire of a human being is they want to have a home. Nobody wants to be homeless. Natural desire of a human being is they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to become better. These are desires of human beings. And these are not limited to anything specific. These are desires which are part of our identity and self-expression of who we are as human beings. These are innate desires that we are born with. On a spiritual level, because the soul originates in Atzilut, which is a world of godliness, so therefore the soul also has an innate natural desire to want to connect to God, to want to connect to something higher. This is why you see that you have college students all across the world that want to become part of a greater mission, that want to become part of something that's more meaningful. Unfortunately, sometimes it translates into the wrong missions. But we do have to recognize that when you have kids marching in the streets, it's because they're searching for something of meaning. They're searching for something greater. They're searching for something better than themselves. And it's important to recognize that. This is a natural desire of a human being. If you just tell a kid when they wake up, when they go to school, why are you going to school? Because you need to go to college. Why do you need to go to college? Because you need to get a degree. Why do you need a degree? Because you need to get a job. Why do you need a job? To make money. Why do you need to make money? So you could have kids who could go to school, who could go to college, who could get a degree, who could make money. Why do they need? Then kids hear that they're not interested and they want to turn away from their parents. Just putting a little perspective in what's going on. A natural desire for human beings is that they want to connect to God in a meaningful, in a passionate way. This is the natural desire. This is the innate a desire of what we have. The desire or pleasure also comes in that. And then you have and this innate desire is connected to the Ein Sof. Ein Sof means it is infinite. For this innate desire is constant, it's immune to any variations of life. It causes all parts of the person to fall in line with its wishes, and that is infinite life. Something that you always want. Person always wants to have a home. And you have in one home, you want to have a better home. You get into that home, you want to have even a better home. Person always wants to have a place to live. Then there's another type of desire. The second type of desire is something that is more particularly calculation for a specific things or a specific area. You may want a specific type of garment because it may be in style, it may be more durable. You may want a specific type of car because it's electronic and you really care for the environment. You may want to buy a certain stock because the analysis of the market says that this is going to be something good. But this is a calculated desire. It's a desire for something with a certain reason why I want that thing. And the second category of that is something that is subject to change. But nevertheless, this is also part of our desire and part of our pleasure as well, the pleasure within the desire. And it is connected to this concept too, because once you want something, it's because that's something that you desire, even if there's a reason for it, there is some connection to your soul that thing wants. That you want that thing. That thing has some sort of connection to your soul. Let's see text number 12. Rabbi Shimon and his colleague Levi were studying the Torah portion of Rabbi Shimon's father, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Yehuda the prince. When they completed, Levi suggested, let them bring us proverbs to study, whereas Rabbi Shimon suggested, let them bring us psalms to study. Rabbi Shimon prevailed upon Levi to acquiesce, and they brought a book of psalms. When they reached the passage, praised is a person whose desire is the God's Torah, Rabbi Yehuda explained, you can only learn Torah from a place that your heart desires. At this point, Levi declared, my teacher, you have given me permission to leave. Okay? So what's the story here? They each wanted to learn something else. One had an interest in studying Psalms. One had an interest in studying, Proverbs. Some people enjoy studying Kabbalah. Some people enjoy studying law. Some people enjoy studying history. Some people enjoy studying Torah. Some people enjoy studying prophets. Some people like math, right? Everybody has things that they connect to, that they enjoy. And because you have a desire for that, actually, you should put a focus on those things. Now, if you're a student studying in school, you got to learn what they're teaching you in school. But in your free time, what should you study? People ask me, what should I study? You should study what you feel you have an interest in, what you feel you have a connection to. So the fact that you have an interest to it means that your soul also has a certain interest in that aspect. And so therefore it's something that you feel attracted to. Text 13. Desire, ratzon, compels all the person's abilities to be drawn after it. Therefore, our sages taught us that we should study specifically a subject that we desire, for then our minds become more creative and analytical regarding the object of our desire. Indeed, we can readily observe that those who study with desire comprehend the subject better than intellectually gifted individuals who do not have a similar desire. For the ratzon forces the intellect to operate in a higher level. Indeed, he has the same amplifying effect on all of an individual's ability. So there's different types of desires. There's a higher desire and a lower desire, but both are really coming from the same place. Even that which is a calculated desire, you think, I want it because of something, really there's something deeper that's telling you to go there. Even something as simple as, I want to go on vacation. And I want to go on vacation to, I want to go visit New Zealand. I have no interest in visiting New Zealand. I have a friend who's going to visit New Zealand. So maybe it's because his soul has something there that my soul doesn't. So we have desires for certain things, but different people have that attraction because that is also their soul's connection there. So this is called ratzon. Term number 3.7 in your term page. Ratzon hanefesh, the soul's desire. A, desire flowing from the soul's innate nature, and B, a desire generated by contemplation. So now let's try and apply this concept. Because you say, sometimes I really want something, but I have difficulty getting there. I know I want it, but I just don't feel that I can get it. Let's take a look at text 14. In the city of Lapel, there lived a chassid named Rabbi Kutil, who worked as a salt merchant. He was well known for his piety, but his comprehension of Torah and Chassidic teachings was quite limited. Once a young teacher of Hasidic philosophy traveled by way of Lapel and chose to linger in the city for a week. Each day he reviewed another Hasidic discourse that had been delivered by the Mittler Rebbe, Rabbi Dover Lubavitch. However, Rabbi Yekutiel found that due to his limited intelligence, he could not understand these teachings. This bothered him profoundly, and he felt utterly broken. He wept bitter tears and recited psalms, but found no solace. He decided to journey to Lubavitch and consult Rabbi Dover himself. Rabbi Yekutiel entered the Rebbe's chambers for a private audience and recounted all that he had experienced at home. The Rebbe responded, "Nothing stands in the way of a desire. The mind and emotions are positioned beneath desire and are subject to it. The superior power of desire influences the mind and emotions by way of command and directive. If you truly desire something, your abilities will expand accordingly." Upon hearing this, Rabbi Yekutiel decided to stay in Lubavitch. He informed those traveling through Lapel to convey to his family he would be delayed for a while. They should run his store in absence. For 4 months, he toiled, and with tremendous effort, both physically and mentally, he practiced focusing on a single topic for several hours at a time. He reviewed each subject dozens of times. By the time Rosh Hashanah came, he felt like a new man. Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Lubavitch later stated, "The Chassid Rabbi Yekutiel of Lepel is a living example of our sages' teaching. If you labor, you will find success." Right? So what do we say? If there's a will, there's a way. If there's a will, there's a way. So sometimes we feel a desire to something, but it doesn't seem to be working. So yeah, it's true, we have to keep working on it. And when you feel that it's not working, you have to keep going. There's different ways of reacting to a failure. Response 1 could be, you're still worthy. Response B could be, try something else. Response C says, nothing stands in the way of desire. If you feel that you really have a connection to this thing, and you feel that you really want it, then desire, nothing stands in the way of desire. Nothing stands in the way of your will to achieve that which you want. And therefore, when we talk about infinity, something that is infinite, something that has not bound, something that is not limited, that is all connected with ratzon, with your desire to be able to do something. And if you put your will to it, you will be able to accomplish anything. And so that's why we say that when it comes to desire, when it comes to willpower, which is the keter, this is something that is unlimited. Text 15, there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov where he was sitting with his students. And a man, they're studying in the study hall, and the man, a Ukrainian, came to scream in Ukrainian, Russian, whatever, that his wagon was stuck in the mud. Can they help him get it out? Now, these are a bunch of rabbis sitting and studying. They're like, I don't know how to get this out of the mud. We talked about the story last week. So he screamed back at them. He said, Moshesh dan yechochish, which means, I'm sorry. So they said to him, we can't do it. She said, Moshesh dan yechochish, which means you could, you just don't want to. And the Baal Shem Tov turned to his students and said, this is something that we could learn from this Russian peasant. Moshesh da, you want, if you could, if chochish, if you want to. If you have a will, you're able to. He said, don't tell me you can't. You could. If you want to, you could. Having a willpower is incredibly possible. Is incredibly powerful. So this is what we are learning from here. So in lesson 1, we learned that we could control our going back. In lesson 1, we said that we could control our levushim, our garments. What are the garments? Who remembers what are they? It's the 3 garments. Thought, speech, and action. Those are the 3 garments. Lesson 2, we talked about our godly makeup, which is what we call the Sefirot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, and we said we have to try and focus on our strong points to serve God that way using our strong points. And lesson 3, we say, when you see your strong point, when you appreciate what you are, when you know, when you feel that you have a connection to a certain thing, you have to have the desire to go and do it and reach ultimately what you got to do, and don't let anything get in your way. Now, how do you... this is a song. This is what's it playing. I'm going backwards. Okay, this is a song which... It would be nice to play. We don't have time to play it, but I want to remind you again that there's videos, the PowerPoint, the song. There's a song by each lesson, which I didn't play. You go to myjli.com/Kabbalah. It's myjli.com/Kabbalah. And you could find, there's each lesson, you could find all the videos. You could also find additional articles, additional videos and things. So you can find everything online just as a follow-up. myjli.com/Kabbalah. It's on the back of your book. Go to the back of your book. There's a list of websites here. See the bottom one, myjli.com/Kabbalah. You go there and you can find all these videos and everything. So if you feel you missed something, I'm not done the class yet. But let's go to the final point, and that is we talked about Chesed and Gevura and Tiferes, but there's one aspect that we really didn't focus on, and that is the first three. There's a spot that we missed in between the Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, and Keter. We missed three there, right? Chachma, Bina, Dad. You see that in the chart? We missed those. We didn't really talk about those yet. Chachma, Bina, Dad. They're in black. Comprehension, creativity, and personalization. This is going to show us how you could go from the desire of something to actually knowing what to do and then bringing that down to the emotions. This is the three intellectual traits. So now we're going to break that down. Chachma, normally translated as wisdom, but it's actually made up of two words. Chachma is koach ma. Koach ma. Koach means potential, and ma means what? What does that mean? It means that the Chachma is the first spark of intellect that is of a potential to turn into something. It's an idea that's not yet fully developed. An idea, sometimes you have a spark that comes to your mind. Usually it's like when you're laying down, you're in relaxed mode, and suddenly you have this idea that comes to you, or you're working hard trying to understand something, and suddenly you lay down, you relax, and then you have the spark that comes to you. That is Chachma. It is the seed of a new concept that comes to you, the spark of intellectual creativity. That is what's translated here as creativity, Chachma. Then you have Bina. Bina, basically translated as comprehension. It's like taking the seed. The Chachma is like taking the seed and dropping it in the earth. Bina is the power within the earth to bring seed to fruition. It's the idea taking of our mind, within our mind, taking the spark of a new idea and developing it, understanding it, analytical breakdown of these creative ideas that have come to you. We have to decipher it, you have to analyze it, and you have to see how to take those creative flashes into implication. That is the idea of Bina. Again, generally translated as comprehension, it means continuously breaking down the concept through analytical, through logic, etc. And then comes the third one, which is das. Dat. Dat, basically translated as knowledge, but it means much more than that. Dat means personalization, personalizing the thing. And yes, those who asked, chach, each of these words begin ches, beis, dalet, spell the word Chabad. Chabad. So what does Chabad mean? Chabad means the three intellects. Why is Chabad associated with these three intellects? Because Chabad, Hasidus, is the one that took the Hasidic teachings and said, we have to understand it. There's other Hasidic teachings that are very emotion-based. Chesed, Gevurah, they're very emotion. They are about just bringing about these spiritual concepts in a way that you could feel them and be inspired by them. Which is the way you see a lot of the other Hasidic sects. They're generally about emotions. Chabad is about understanding it. You understand it, and then you have the inspiration, the emotion that comes after that. That's why you see so many more books of Chabad Hasidus more than any other kind. There's hundreds and hundreds of books of Chabad Hasidus. Because Chabad is about understanding it. That's why I could stand here and teach this. Anyway, but what is the third one? Das, which means knowledge, doesn't just mean to know something. Really knowing something means that it is becoming part of you. It becomes personalized with you. You're connecting with something in a personal way. Dot number 3.1, connecting with something in a personal way. As the story is told, you have a Jewish farmer back in the day. Many of the farmers, they were very illiterate. And they couldn't even read, basic reading, which is why we have in our prayers, we have the repetition of the Amidah. Why do we have that? Because back in the day, many people didn't know how to pray. They didn't have prayer books that were printed like we have today. They didn't have the English translation or the Russian translation. So you had a chazan, and he would pray on behalf of the congregation. So there was this one guy who was a farmer, and you had the teacher, and the teacher, the Muhammad in the town, he would also read the letters that would come to different people. That came to town, he would read their letters. So he came to this one particular farmer, and he's reading the letter. And he's reading and reading and reading, and the farmer faints. What happened? What did the letter say? The letter said that the farmer's father died. So the farmer heard it and he fainted. Comes the question, this horrible news, why didn't the teacher faint? He's the one reading the letter as well. And the answer, of course, is it's not his father. So he may have a feel for it, but not as much as the farmer who read it. What's the idea? The idea is that there are certain things that could become so meaningful to you that it affects you. It changes you. This is Das. Das doesn't just mean that you are understanding something, that you know something. Know means that you have a connection to it. It becomes real. It becomes part of you. You ever saw a comedian? Every single thing that a comedian does, he knows how to turn it into comedy. Everything that he sees how that's comedy. Then you could have an economist. Every single thing that economist sees, he sees the money, he sees the dollar sign. Whatever he sees, all that he sees is the dollar sign there. And the same thing about different people, that when you have a profession of something, you're making everything about what that is. That's Das. Das means it's becoming real by you. Text 16a. Das consists of a familiar connection that triggers desire. Thus the Torah used the term Dat to depict a bond, as in the verse Adam knew Eve. What does it mean Adam knew Eve? Adam yada as Chava. What happened when he knew Eve? What's the next thing that happened? They have a child. So the bonding is Dat. He knew Chava means he had that connection with her. So Bina is about learning the subject. Das is about personalizing the information. So now we have the whole chain of reaction. Begins with Keter, which is the infinite desire for something. That desire brings about a flash of a concept in your mind. Then you develop it, and then you make it real. When you make it real to you, you start feeling emotions for it. You start having chesed, the emotions start building up, emotions of chesed, emotions of gevurah, etc. And this is how the chain continues to pass down. So But what do we see from here? That there's three things that have a connection. The keter, the desire, is very much connected to dat. Why? Because the desire that you have is also about a very deep connection that you have with yourself. When you begin comprehending the thing, dat means you're actually making it one with you. You're actually connecting it to you. That is connected as well to the central aspect, which is keter, the desire. The desire then translates into the dat, which is your connection, which eventually translates into tiferet, which is bringing things together in order to make that thing happen. In order to make those things happen. And so now, we alluded earlier when we said that the divine identity of the soul is really there always. It needs to be, it doesn't need to be generated because there is an inherent connection that the soul has with Hashem that it wants to connect with God. Text 16b, the lower form of desire, which is inferior to the higher, innate desire, can nonetheless trigger the revelation of the higher desire. So we said that there's two desires. There's one desire which is the higher desire, which is your innate, natural desires that a human being has. And then you also have the desire, which is those which is broken down where you feel something more connected to. Well, how it's played out in a day-to-day life. We talked about the soul being taharahi, the soul being pure. When you contemplate about God and you personalize what God means in your life, then that will trigger a calculated desire for Him, ratzon, and uncover a concealed innate desire, the higher ratzon, which is leaving you invested in your relationship with God. So when we talk about connecting to God each and every day, you wake up in the morning and you say the prayer Moda Ani, which you recognize that you have a pure soul that God has given you. You begin to contemplate about that a little bit. You think about it, which is Bina. But then you personalize that, which is God, making it meaningful to your life. What does God mean to me? How does that make a difference in my life? And that triggers a desire, a ratzon, a connection to connect to Him. And eventually, this is how we bring about our relationship to God every single day. Okay, let's take a lesson review here.
Lesson 3. The Infinite Light. 1. In many prayers, we acknowledge God as the Creator and develop a sense of closeness with Him. At the same time, our daily prayers include passages that emphasize God's transcendence, for this aspect of God similarly deserves our attention. 2. Couples can set aside their differences by learning from their souls who were able to become soulmates by sensing God's infinity. Couples can then embrace their personalities and experiences and nevertheless find harmony. 3. Success requires strong desire. Therefore, we are advised to study those areas of Torah in which we already possess an interest. 4. We can generate desire by utilizing our power of dot, connection, to contemplate the importance of a given behavior or quality in a personalized way. 5. Our souls possess an innate desire to cleave to God. If this desire is concealed, we can awaken it by generating a calculated desire for God.
Reminder, next week there is no class. We're going to do lesson 4 in 2 weeks. We'll see you then, God willing. Thank you all for joining us today.